Not a beautiful day out here. Overcast, windy, and cold. I certainly don't think I'm going fishing today. May not be the greatest weather out there today, but I know I really can't complain because I know a lot of you guys out there aren't fishing at all right now. Even though I can't get out on the water today, I can still help you guys out. And I'm gonna try to do that today by answering one of the questions you guys ask me the most. How do I know which rod to use? What makes one rod different from the next rod? And what makes that rod a better choice for what I'm fishing today? There's actually a lot of variables and a lot of information to digest when you're choosing which rod is best for you. And all that information can get overwhelming. Today, I'm gonna do what I do best. We're going all in. Everything you need to know about rod action and rod power. Keep it as simple as possible so everybody can actually understand the language of how to choose the right rod today. So as you can see, I do have a lot of rods. Why do you need so many rods? And I hear that question all the time, especially from my wife. Well, to put it plainly, each rod has a different application for me. Different techniques, different conditions, even different lures. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I choose what rod I need to have on any certain day. So I do have a lot of rods. Do you absolutely need all the rods that I have? Not necessarily. For those of you that are looking to build your arsenal up, even if you're just looking to find what's the best rod all around, this is gonna help you out too, because I'm gonna break down what the difference in all rods are. And hopefully by the end of this, you're gonna have a much better understanding of how a rod works, what the language of a rod is, and what you need to be looking for in your rod or your arsenal, no matter how big or small it actually is. I do have a lot of rods. I'll admit that. They all have a time and place, and there's a reason why I have them in my collection. I picked these rods out because they're good examples of the differences of rods. There's different rod power, there's different rod action, there's different rod lengths, and there's even different materials that the rod itself is made out of. We can get real deep in depth when it comes to the build of rods. I'm not gonna go too technical into all this. We're gonna keep it real simple today. This video is gonna be all about the basic language of choosing fishing rods. Almost every rod out there has all that pertinent information printed right on the rod itself. The length, the power, and the action are pretty much there. And most companies will go far enough to actually explain the line size and the lure weight that rod is capable of handling. That's great information, but if you don't understand how to read it or even what any of that means, it's not gonna be very helpful. Someone can give you the greatest advice of all time, but if you don't understand the language of it, it's not gonna do you any good. So that's the first thing I wanna explain, is what that language written on that rod actually says. What all those letters and numbers actually truly mean. To me, probably the most important thing to understand about the differences of rods is broken in two very simple categories: rod action and rod power. But what do they really mean? And what's the difference between power and action? So when we're talking about the actual rating on the rods, the power is very simple. Power ranges from ultralight, light, medium, medium heavy, heavy, extra heavy, and so on and so forth. And it's represented in the writing by the first letter of that. An ultralight rod will be UL, a light rod will be L, a medium rod will be M, a medium heavy will be MH, heavy H, extra heavy XH. You see how simple that actually is. And the action is referred to by speed. You'll see writing that says moderate, moderate fast, fast, extra fast. Granted, that's pretty simple, but knowing what they actually mean and are referring to, I think that's where things get a little confusing for some folks out there. I'm gonna break it down real simple so you understand what the differences are from a moderate to an extra fast, from a light to a heavy. Let's start with rod power. Power is light, medium, and heavy. Power is the amount of force that rod can handle and the amount of power it takes to flex that rod. When you're talking about rod power, it's referred to by weight. Think of it like this. The deciding factors of what power of rod to get, I break it down into three factors. Number one, think about the conditions you fish. If you're going to be fishing in real heavy cover, like matted weeds, heavy thick bush, things like that, you're going to need a heavy power rod. If you're fishing in very light, sparse cover, or even no cover, like open water, you can probably get away with a light powered rod. So the weight of the conditions you're fishing will reflect directly to the weight of the power of the rod. Number 2, the weight of the lure I'm using. If I'm going to be using very finesse and lightweight lures, 1/32 of an ounce, 1/16 of an ounce, 1/8 of an ounce light lures, I'll be using a light powered rod. Real heavy lures like 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 3 ounce, even bigger than that, you're going to need a heavy powered rod. Heavy lures, heavy powered rod. Medium weight, average weight lures, 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, that's a medium weight, that's a medium powered rod. And number 3 is going to be the weight of the line. 4 pounds, 6 pounds, 8 pounds, somewhere in that range. It's a lightweight line. It's going to require a lightweight rod. 50 pound, 65, 80 pound braid, that's a heavy to extra heavy power rod. Heavy line, heavy power. And if you're gonna be fishing right there in the middle, 20 pound, 30 pound braid, 12 pound, 15 pound fluorocarbon, whatever your line is, it's a medium weighted line. It's gonna be a medium weighted power rod. The weight of the cover, the weight of the line, and the weight of the lure will help you choose the weight of the power of the rod. Next, I'm gonna look at the action of the rod. The action is probably what's most confusing to most of you out there. Action is generally referred to by speed. It'll go from moderate speed to fast speed. And what the speed is implied to, how fast that rod will bend and how fast it'll snap back. Since they already refer to it as speed, think of it in terms of speed. Speed of that tip of the rod. When you think about the bend or the flex of a rod, the closer the flex point is to the tip, the faster that action's gonna be. The easiest way to understand this is to physically show it to you. Between all these rods, I should be able to show you really clearly what the different action of each rod is. This is the proper way to actually test this out yourself without risking damaging the rod. First, let me show you what not to do when you're testing out the action of these rods. Number 1 mistake I see people doing all the time is shaking the crap out of the rod to see how much flex or whip it's got into it. The rod is not designed to do that. And you throwing that extra whole bunch of action into it could really risk damaging the rod. Most common mistake I see people do, grabbing the tip and bending it to see where the flex in the rod is. That's definitely a no-no, and do not do that. Especially if you're looking at buying a rod, because you're gonna be buying a broken rod, I guarantee it. The rods are not designed to have that kind of pressure put on them. When you grab that tip of that rod and bend it yourself, you run a very good risk of breaking and snapping that tip. The best way and proper way to test out the action of a rod, hold the butt end of the rod up about shoulder height and put the very tip of the rod on the ground. Make sure the guides or the eyes of the rod are facing up, not pushing into the ground. By holding the rod like this and applying the pressure just to the tip, you'll be able to see the accurate flex and speed of that action without risking damage to the rod. So with that, let me show you the difference between a few different actions. This is an extra fast action. When I apply pressure, you can see that it's really only the top portion of that rod, very close to the tip, that is actually flexing. When I let go of that pressure, it bounces back very quickly. That is an extra fast action. The flex is very close to the tip, very little flex, and it bounces back very quickly. This rod is a fast action, and you can see the flex in the rod goes a little bit farther than that extra fast, but still not very far down the blank at all. When I release the power, it bounces back very quickly. That is a fast action tip. The flex of the rod is a little farther from the tip, but it's still a very fast action. This rod here is a moderate fast action. When I apply the pressure, you see much more of a bend in that rod. The main point of flex is much farther down that rod, about 1/3 of the length all the way down the rod. It's slower to flex and slower to snap back. Moderate fast, a lot slower. And finally, a moderate action. When I apply the pressure, the moderate flex is way down the rod. The flex point is at least halfway down that rod. A much more parabolic bend and a much slower action. Moderate is the slowest action, and you can see why. It's farthest away from the tip. It takes the longest for that power to transfer all the way to the flex point, and it's the slowest to snap all the way back. A moderate action is a very parabolic, slow action. The action is all about speed, and it all has to do with how far away from the tip the rod actually flexes. Moderate, really slow and really far. Fast, really quick and really close. So now that you understand what action is and how it actually works, How do you choose which action of a rod is going to be the best rod for you? Easiest way I can explain it, keep thinking speed. The first thing I think about is going to be the lure and the technique I'm going to use that lure for. The faster I have to move that lure and the more action I have to give to it, the faster action I'm going to need. If I'm using a topwater walking bait where I got to move it quick pops, quick jerks, making that lure side to side as quick as possible in short little bursts, I need the flex and the tip of that rod to move fast. So I'm looking for a fast action tip on a fast lure like that. Things like shaky heads or even a drop shot, something where I'm moving it quick, short, quick little bursts, shaking that tip, making the lure dance. You want a fast action where it moves fast. The faster of an action I need to give to a lure, the faster of a tip I want on that rod. You can also think about it about distance that you're fishing. The closer you're going to be fishing, you don't have a lot of line to be able to move it nice and slow. It takes less time to get that lure back to you, less time to transfer that energy. It's a faster speed, a faster action. When you're fishing at farther distances, you're covering a lot more water. It takes a lot longer to transfer that energy. Slower all the way to the lure. You need a slower, more moderate action on it. Things like crankbaits, spinner baits, something you're gonna fire a much farther distance and work a lot slower, you're gonna have a lot slower action to it. Steady retrieve it, nice and slow. You're not giving a lot of whip or a lot of action to that. You want a nice, moderate, slow action. Think of it like speed. The farther away it is, the longer it's going to take to get back to you, the longer it takes for your energy to transfer to that lure. You need a nice slow action. The closer it is to you, the faster that energy transfers, the faster you can get the lure back, the faster the action you need. So action is all about speed. The closer, the faster, the farther, the slower. The faster action and the faster you need to move the lure, the faster the tip. The slower and less action, the slower and more moderate action you need on the rod. And it's really just that simple. Power and action. Think of them the way they're actually written out and try to apply those actual terms to what you're actually using that rod for. The power of the rod is all about weight. The weight of the line, the weight of the lure, and the weight of the conditions is the easiest way to judge the power you need. The action is all about speed. How fast the tip is or how slow the tip is. The faster action you need to give, the faster action you need in a rod. The less action and the slower you need to move that lure, the slower action you need in the rod. The closer you're fishing, the faster the transfer and the faster the action. The farther you're fishing, the slower the transfer and the slower the action. Understanding what rod power means and what rod action means is really going to help you decide what rod is best to use. So there you have it, guys. I hope that helps and simplified things a little bit. And hopefully you understand the language of fishing rods a little bit better. Whether you're buying a new rod or just adding to your arsenal or trying to choose which rod to actually use in what situation. Understanding the language of those rods, understanding what power means, understanding what action means, and how to actually apply those are going to greatly help you out next time you get out on the water. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned a little something. If you did, make sure you smash the heck out of that like button and leave a comment on anything else you'd like to see us film. I'll do my best to make a video out of each and every one of those. But most importantly, subscribe to the channel and stay subscribed because there's plenty more coming right here on Sawgrass Bassin.